Hi, just a quick explanation of what you're going to watch here. In 1984, a friend of mine named Carl Sammons built the navigation console and the captain's chair for the bridge. And later on, he needed to move it someplace, and I had just bought a house with a huge rec room. So we moved it there, and then he and I built the science console together, and I built the panels and the red alert for the navigation console. Did a little bit more wiring on it. And a local newspaper man found out about it, and he did this story on us, full page. And it went AP, and apparently it went all over the country. We heard from people in Anchorage, Alaska, and People magazine even came and did a thing for us. I don't think it ever got in the magazine, though. But these are 4 TV spots, 3 from Seattle and 1 from Portland. The guys came to our rec room, did the spots. Now these are very kind of ratty. They're made from copies from old VHS tapes and VHS tape copies of VHS tapes, so they're not super great quality. They're 40 years old, and they're kind of a nice little memory thing here. They led to a lot of different things for my wife and I. We ended up having dinner with Darth Vader, David Prowse. We ended up going to just a ton of conventions. There's a Spokane radio interviewed me over the phone. It was fun. We got our Andy Warhol 15 minutes of fame and then some. And so I'm going to play them for you and see what you think about them. Now, just so you know, the bridge no longer exists. It's a complicated and sordid tale, so I won't go into it here. But enjoy. I think you're going to get a kick out of them.
Space, the final frontier. Who among us has not longed to be on the bridge of the Starship Enterprise, trekking as it were among the galaxies with Captain James Kirk and crew?
Tell Mr. Spock I'll meet him there in 10 minutes. Kirk out.
Well, Vern Jenkins, his wife Michelle, and their 2 young sons, Christopher and Sean, can go star trekking whenever they want to. The recreation room in a remodeled garage next to the house is the Enterprise. The command bridge, which according to a couple of Star Trek cast members who have seen it, is better than the one used in the old TV series. Most visitors volunteer to go along. And of course, in addition to role-playing, there must also be a crisis.
Chekhov, you're out of uniform.
I know, sir, but I don't have to be in uniform to know that my whole panel has just gone out, and if something isn't done about it and soon, we're going to miss K7 base by about 3 light years.
Captain, we're picking up a strange signal.
How strange is it?
They're telling us that we're about 3 light years away from K7.
See, sir, I told you so.
Well, obviously if you want something done right, you gotta do it yourself, so I'll do it myself.
Jenkins is an electrician in real life at the Puget Sound Naval Shipyard. He and a friend collaborated on construction of the Enterprise Bridge. Michelle and Vern met at the 1975 Star Trekkers Convention in Seattle, married, had kids, and have remained dedicated trekkers. In fact, they have all 76 episodes of Star Trek on videotape and 22 animated cartoon parts.
All worked together and got along together and didn't treat aliens as some sort of space monster to be done away with. They got along as one big happy family. I think that was one of the great appeals of the show. It had quite a message of hope at the time it came out.
Jenkins says his friend Carl Sammons, who built the bridge, recently bought a surplus Nike missile base here. The dream is to build the entire Enterprise command deck and place it in one of the missile silos. What an adventure that'll be.
Yeah, adventure. That's it.
Beam us down, Scotty. Perhaps there is some intelligent life on Earth after all. Aboard the Starship Enterprise over Bremerton, Washington, this is Pat Wilkins, Channel 2 News.
Day at Cape Canaveral, Florida.
About 5:15 yesterday afternoon. Once again, the morning space shuttle launch is repeated, a spectacular leap into the final frontier. But for Vern and Michelle Jenkins and their friend Carl Sammons, the launch is pretty tame stuff, as it would be for anyone who's boldly gone where no man has gone before.
These are the voyages of the Star Starship Enterprise.
Vern, Michelle, and Carl are Star Trek fans. The Jenkins first met at a Trekkers convention. Now they own every Trek television show, novelization, and plastic toy. Carl, who with Vern is a shipyard electrician, came trekking later.
I was a closet trekker for years.
These aren't average Star Trek fans, though. They've taken that one step beyond.
Captain's log, Stardate 8408.30. Explosion in space, the Orion ship has detonated.
The bridge of the USS Enterprise, built by Carl, housed in Vern's playroom. On Carl's Enterprise bridge, switches switch, lights flash. He can even conjure up a red alert. And this is really just the beginning.
Recently, me and a partner of mine acquired a Nike missile base. I'm building the bridge in there, and then adjacent to it, we're going to have the transporter room and engineering. It's going to be a semi-sound stage. You go into it, and there it is, man. I mean, you know, you can do everything you want to do with it. And I plan on playing with it.
If these folks seem a bit odd, that's what they consider people whose hobbies include falling off bar stools. And the Enterprise Bridge for them represents a better, more adventurous future, where technology is complex, but moral choices are simple.
That world is the way I want this world to eventually end up someday.
For more than a half a century, that's the way it's been down there, but no more.
Back in the house, back to the news of this world, until the next red alert. I'm Greg Palmer, Top Story.
And when you get to Vern Jenkins' Starship, he's of course a Trekkie, one of the originals. And Vern knows why Star Trek was able to keep its fans from day one to Stardate September 5th, 1984.
The time that the show came out, there were a lot of crises, and of course the Vietnam War and all that stuff. And it was kind of fun to get away from all that. And Captain Kirk was a whole new male image for a lot of kids to grow up with. And he could cry when the needs be. He was he could get wasn't afraid to get emotional, to show his emotions. He was imperfect. He faltered at times, made mistakes.
He still does. I mean, Captain Vern Jenkins Kirk put me in the driver's seat.
Prepare for warp maneuvers, Ensign Murphy.
Yes, sir.
Warp maneuvers.
Captain, I don't remember that. Warp maneuvers? How do you spell that, Captain?
When I work on the special effects and stuff, I like to think that maybe I'm creating something of my own, and maybe I can sometimes contribute. Star Trek is kind of a model that I try to work against. It's a hard one to live up to, but if I were to go into writing or something, I would try to write something along those lines, something with that caliber of the believability, the imagination.
Keep me up, Scotty. Scotty, we got a complaint up here. Something about the environmental system here. Chekhov's complaining that he's having sinus problems. Anything you can do about it?
Your automation system's overloaded. I didn't expect to take us into combat, you know.
They had everybody, and they were a close family unit. They worked together. They were perfectly happy together. They pulled each other out of scrapes. They were dedicated to each other and to the ship. And that was something that was really, to me, I thought it was really great to watch.
Say, Captain, could I have one light year off, please?
Take two. They're small.
Thanks, Captain.
So Vern Jenkins tinkers, Klingons, and has a great time in his garage. But it's the people he's met on his 17-year voyage that makes the difference.
Every Trekker I've ever met at a convention or at a party or anything like that has always been an interesting person. I haven't met too many of them that were really, didn't have anything to say. They were pretty interesting, pretty creative people. Everybody had a definite viewpoint. And most of them were very peace-loving people.
Who really hate Klingons a whole lot, even more than not thinking about Star Trek most of the time. I'm Dan Murphy, Cairo, Eyewitness News.
Good shooting, Mr. Scott.
That's nice, but people my age would rather have a house just like Beaver Cleaver's. And that's the news. Good night. Good night.
It was 18 years ago this month that the first episode of Star Trek appeared on network television. Now, 79 episodes and 3 motion pictures later, the crew of the Enterprise still has a very devoted following. In tonight's News Plus report, William Boyd visits a Bremerton couple who are going where no fans have gone before.
Warp Factor 6, Lieutenant.
Aye, sir.
No, this is not a sneak preview of Star Trek IV. This is Vern and Mickey Jenkins at home in their rec room. They may be the only Star Trek fans this side of Telos 4 who can cruise the final frontier in their own starship bridge. The full-size replica includes the captain's console, helm, and communications module, all familiar fixtures aboard the USS Enterprise. When he's not wearing his captain's uniform, Vern Jenkins is an electrician at the Puget Sound Naval Shipyard, and Mickey is a cook at a Mexican restaurant. Fittingly, the two met 9 years ago at a Star Trek convention, which is where Vern also became a diehard Star Trek fan.
The people were very interesting. They weren't a bunch of crazies like one might assume. There was just normal, everyday people there, all age group. And that made me feel pretty comfortable with myself for being a fan, realizing that I wasn't alone.
Since then, Star Trek has been Vern and Mickey's major hobby, but the command deck didn't come into their lives until earlier this year. Most of the props were built years ago by fellow Star Trek fan Carl Sammons, who displayed them at a couple of Star Trek conventions. At one of those conventions, actor George Takei, who plays Mr. Sulu, sat at the helm and pronounced it better built than the one used in the show. But after that, the set was allowed to languish in Sammons' basement.
And it was just sitting down there mildewing. Stuff was stacked all over it. He really didn't have the time or the money to invest in it. He had other hobbies and a family. And so when we acquired this house a year ago, we had this nice big rec room that wasn't really being used for anything. So Carl and I got together and decided to bring it over here. And I've been painting and cleaning it up and doing some rewiring and adding things to it here and there. And it's just seeing some use now.
Klingon sighted, sir.
Fire photon torpedoes.
Jenkins says he and his wife actually take fairly few voyages in their starship. He spends most of his time in the rec room making improvements to the consoles and using them as a set for amateur video productions. The Rec Room Enterprise also gets lots of visitors.
We have a role-playing game on it every now and then on a Saturday evening. We just more or less use it as a set to sit at. And my children really love it. They come out here and play with it all the time.
The set was built for about $300 using a set of Enterprise blueprints, which show where all the controls are positioned on the consoles. Eventually, Jenkins and Sammons plan to construct the rest of the bridge, which will measure 30 feet across and have outgrown Jenkins' rec room. Sammons plans to take it to an abandoned Nike missile base he just purchased south of Bremerton and install it in one of the missile silos. That may sound highly illogical, but it's an idea many Trekkies will no doubt find fascinating.
You know, I've wanted to sit in Captain Kirk's chair for 18 years, and now that Vern's gone, I finally get a chance to do it. This is almost as good as the real thing, but I still know that nothing would happen if I were to say, "Beam me down, Mr. Scott."
Energizing.
You can put me back now, Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott? Oh, well. From somewhere in hyperspace, William Boyd with 10 o'clock News Plus.
Oh, we lost Bill.
Has he come back yet?
No, I didn't see him around today.
I haven't either.